All right, this video is on a very touchy subject. I actually did a video yesterday on this subject, and I decided not to use it because I felt it wasn't good enough. So I'm redoing it today, and I want to try to touch a lot of the important points. The question is, can Hitler be forgiven? And Hitler is just maybe one of the great symbols of modern times of someone who committed really atrocious acts, was a mastermind behind the atrocious acts, and some people might even say evil. Some people might even say pure evil. And the question is there such a thing as pure evil? Some people say there is, and others question that, and that's really what's at question, at stake in this whole thing that we're doing here is can even someone like Hitler find redemption ultimately, or what he did did that put him beyond the pale of forgiveness, beyond the pale of being in any way saved, right? His soul saved, if we can even use those terms, because not everyone would agree with that, Now, on a purely earthly basis, by the rules and the laws of this world, Hitler, deserved death for what he did. He deserved punishment. He ended up killing himself, but he deserved to be murdered himself or put away for what he did. Now that is separate actually from the question of forgiveness, because you could put someone to death and you could still forgive that person. Why would you put someone to death? Well, you would put them to death so they don't hurt more people, and I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, because we don't want, if someone is going insane, you want to stop the insanity if you can help it, right? So that's one thing, is to separate the punishment that he deserved in terms of the laws of this world and the rules of this world. Keep that separate from the spiritual dimension that we're talking about. Can Hitler be forgiven? Well, I think we need to talk about, I feel it's important to talk about anti-Semitism. Not that Hitler only was trying to exterminate the Jews, he was trying to exterminate other people as well. But the Jews were one of Hitler's main targets, if not the main target. He saw the Jewish people as something like a blight on German society that they needed to be removed completely. The Germans, the Aryans, were the master race, and the Jews were an inferior race that needed to be done away with in order for the master race to fully flourish. Now, of course, the Jews were adding a lot to German society. I'm sure that's debatable as well. Some people would say that the Jews were doing harm. But let's talk about anti-Semitism for a moment. Anti-Semitism has been around since the beginning of recorded history. It's in the Bible. There is I believe it's in Exodus. There was a group of people that came up behind Israel in the desert. I believe it was in the desert. They were think they were fleeing Egypt, and all of a sudden this people called Amalek came up behind Israel in the desert and attacked them without cause. And it's very interesting because it's like they come out of nowhere. It's like, where did Amalek come from? Now, recently, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu referenced Amalek as being, as Hamas as being the modern incarnation of Amalek. And other Jews will say that that the Nazis were also Amalek, and that Amalek has resurfaced throughout time, over the course of time, and has persecuted the Jewish people. So Amalek has been around, at least, you could say anti-Semitism has been around for a very long time. And the word anti-Semitism actually comes from the son of one of the three sons of Noah. Remember, the world was destroyed, and Noah and his family went on the ark. And Noah had three sons. They were Ham, Japhet, and Shem. And from Shem came Abraham, the lineage of Abraham, and Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Jacob was Israel, and from Jacob came the Israelites, and that was the lineage. So anti-Semite is like the Shemites, right? Against the lineage of Shem. Now, why Shem is used for that term, I'd have to look that up. But that's the little I know about that. But I'm also going to talk about this issue in light of a modern day scripture, which is called A Course in Miracles, that I've been talking a lot about on this channel. I've been reading from A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles came through a professor of psychology in the mid-60s. Her name was Helen Schuckman. And she was the scribe for this dictation that just began to come through her. And she understood this inner dictation, that she called it, to be from Jesus. And Jesus was giving her this message that was very based in the idea of forgiveness. So that's why we're going to bring this in here, talk about it in light of this issue. It also turns out, we know that Jesus was Jewish. We know that if he really was a historical figure, and I think there's something to be said. I need to do a whole thing about this issue, but there's something to be said for the idea that there really was not a historical Jesus. Jesus was more of a myth. It doesn't mean, on some level, Jesus could still be very true, even if he was not historical. He might have been on some other plane of reality, right? Plane of existence. And obviously, whatever was coming through Helen Schuckman, was not on this earthly plane, right? Jesus was coming through her from somewhere else. Jesus and his closest disciples were Jewish. The apostles were Jewish, according to the New Testament, right? The New Testament. Helen herself was part Jewish. Several of the people early that were part of the early community of A Course in Miracles were Jewish. Helen's co-scribe was not Jewish, Bill Thetford, but the one person that worked very closely with Helen on the editing of A Course in Miracles, Ken Wapnick, was Jewish, and Judy Scutch was Jewish. She also was a core member of this team that brought A Course in Miracles to the world. I also am Jewish parents. My dad was a Holocaust survivor. He grew up in Vienna, and in 1938 or 39, his parents put him and his older brother on a ship to Philadelphia because they saw what was happening and they were worried about them. So they made sure that they were safe. They ended up being killed, and most of my dad's family was killed in the Holocaust. So I saw that my dad was troubled his whole life. This was a trauma that he lived with, and that he could not really seem to, on the surface at least, he did not let it go, and he could not. He hated Germany. He hated the Nazis. He hated Hitler. He could not ever forget or forgive. You know that slogan, "Never forget," right? That's the slogan that the Jewish people has about the Holocaust. Never forget. It's an important slogan, I think, because we do tend to forget history, right? We do tend to forget these things that happen, and they do repeat themselves if we don't remember them, right? So we do need to remember these things, and we do need to remember that it can happen again. If it happened then, it can happen. Sure, it can happen anytime, and it can happen very quickly. You know, just like what happened there. It happened very quickly. So and it is happening, you know, and we do need to bring in the subject of what's happening right now with Israel and Hamas and the Palestinians, and people have been claiming that Israel is now committing genocide against the Palestinians, and the whole thing is a mess. You know, obviously Israel had to do something in response to Hamas, but you know, the amount of Palestinian women and children that have been killed now is horrific. You know, it's like you cannot say that that's okay. And does Israel really think that they're going to exterminate Hamas? That seems to be illusionary on Israel's part. You know, that they're really going to get rid of Hamas, or even if they do get rid of Hamas, that Hamas is not going to come back in some other form. You know, it's just, you know, violence just begets more violence, and we still have not learned that lesson of history. And will we ever? You know, will the world ever change in that regard? Clearly, it's not going to happen anytime soon because the world does not really, you know, it has its own laws and rules. As I was saying at the beginning, and we don't tend to take the spiritual dimension, make that our priority. And if we did, we would stop fighting, right? We would make peace with our brothers, and war would be a thing of the past that we would look back on, just like we look back on things like slavery. Many people and say, "Wow, can't believe that happened." But war, it seems to be very much with us still. So this question hits home for me. Let me say one other thing, is that I was reading at one point, this guy is really cool. He was called the Reincarnation Rabbi, and his name is Yonasson Gershom, and he wrote several books on reincarnation in Judaism, and specifically what he encountered was he had people coming up to him. He would be talking about reincarnation, and he had non-Jewish people coming up to him telling him that they believed that they were Jewish during the Holocaust and they were killed by the Nazis and they came back as a non-Jew. And so he began to collect these stories, and he began to write his books on this phenomenon. That it was like a phenomenon for him. I ended up interviewing this rabbi. He was in living in Minnesota at the time. I don't know if he's still alive. I have to check. I'll try to put links to his books in the description of this. But in one of his books, he talked about, it wasn't him, I don't think it was him, but someone was trying to connect with the soul of Hitler. And the upshot of it is that Hitler was going to find redemption eventually. That even Hitler, as horrible as what he did was, he would ultimately go home, just like everyone else, right? He would ultimately be saved. He would ultimately be redeemed. That was the upshot of what this guy was saying, this rabbi was saying in the book, and what he discovered from really taking this issue very seriously, and he was taking it very seriously. And I did interview, I did this long interview with him. I wish I still had it. It was just over the phone, and I recorded it all. Yeah, so Hitler. It's a long time ago now, it's nearly a century ago. If you weren't in it, the question is maybe not as relevant as if you were in it, right? If you're a Holocaust survivor and you're asked this question, can Hitler be forgiven? I'm sure some would say yes. I'm sure some that even lived through it at the time, if you would ask them at the time, can Hitler be forgiven for this? Some probably would say yes. I would say the more spiritually aware people might say that. Others, probably many others, would say no. He deserves hell, right? He deserves to burn in hell for eternity. So let's go back to this thing about the Jews, right? And part of a big part of anti-Semitism goes back to the time of Jesus, really goes back to the Gospel of John, which is in some ways pointed to as being is fairly anti-Semitic. And from the Gospel of John, we get this idea of the Jews as Christ killers. They did not accept Jesus. They killed Christ. They wanted his blood, right? They even forced Pilate's hand. They forced Pilate. Pilate didn't want to have anything to do with it. He even washed his hands, right? So this is also a big thing, that people look at the Jews as they killed Christ. They don't believe in Christ. They don't accept, right? They're something wrong with them. There's something wrong with those people. If you look at also, a very important thing to keep in mind is that the world population is something like 8 billion, maybe even more by this point in time. 8.5 billion, 9 billion. There's like 1.5 billion people in China, 1.5 billion people in India. India has even surpassed China now in terms of population. I remember when it was just 1 billion in India, right? This is like 20 years ago. So this is like, it's amazing how the world population is increasing. And the Jewish people, the Jews in the world are like 30 million, something like that, maybe even 25. I don't know the exact figure, but there's like 6 million people, 6 million Jews in Israel, 6 million maybe in the United States. It's a very tiny fraction of the world's population. And the influence of the Jewish people is huge, right? If you look at the influence of the Jewish people in the world, it's huge. Just look at this course. I'm saying that this Course in Miracles that I've been talking about came through, a bunch of the people that were the founders were Jewish. And people look at that, and that's where some conspiracy theories come about, that like how can the Jews have so much influence being such a small minority, right? What's going on there? There's got to be some kind of conspiracy happening. And there have been conspiracy theories like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was proven to be a hoax, and that conspiracy was completely demolished, as far as I understand. But there are still people that will say, talk about the Jewish elite in Hollywood and in the media and so on. And as far as I know, it speaks to it speaks something high of the Jewish people. To me, doesn't say that there's something nefarious happening there. To the contrary, I think it speaks highly of the Jewish culture. But not everyone will agree with that. So I accept that. I'm a little bit biased maybe, but I've looked around. I've lived almost 55 years now, and I'm saying what I'm saying, not based on being born yesterday. So let's say this. Anyone that does anything, they think they're right in what they're doing, at least at the time, right? They may later regret it. They may later have remorse. At the time, they think it's the right thing. Hitler thought he was doing the right thing. Hitler thought he was doing something good for his country and for his people, and he was a hero. He was a hero in his own mind, I'm sure, and to his people. The people that were for him, not everyone was, but he thought he was doing the right thing. And you can apply this to everyone and everything, right? We all think we're doing the right thing, even if we're not doing something that is really right. And later, again, we might later regret it. We might later look back on it and say, man, that seemed to be the right thing, but that was not the right thing to do. Now, this is where, if you do accept that, we can, there is such a thing as maybe reincarnation, right? Maybe we do get other chances. Maybe we do get chances to correct ourselves. Maybe there is a forgiveness in the universe that allows for correction to happen over time, right? And that, because we can look back at our own life, and we can see all the shitty things that we've done, and we can look at all the course corrections that we've made in our own lives, and we can say, well, I've done some pretty bad things myself. I've thought some horrible things. I've wanted to kill people. I've wanted to, I've thought really crazy things. You might say, well, does that mean I'm the same as Hitler, or does that mean I'm on that same level? No, it doesn't mean that. But I think you can at least be open to asking, who are you to judge? Who am I to judge? Who am I to judge Hitler for what he did because he thought he was doing the right thing at that time? Now you might say, well, that he was completely perverted, completely insane. And again, the issue of pure evil. Maybe he was part of something like purely satanic or evil. But again, I think to do that is to not forgive yourself, right? And that's where we're coming to with this, which is, if I really feel that if you can't forgive someone like Hitler, it really means you're not forgiving yourself. If you believe that love is all and unconditional love is possible, then first and foremost, you have to forgive yourself. You have to say, well, whatever I did in the past is past, I do want to be better. I accept that I have made mistakes, and I want to correct those mistakes, and I want to do better, and I want to be happy, and I want to feel joy, and I want to feel peace. Don't you think Hitler wanted that on some level? Don't you think Hitler, also being human, had a heart as well? If you say yes, then you're understanding what A Course in Miracles is getting at, which is that even Hitler ultimately would find his way. And so the answer, my answer to this is, I don't know, but I don't have the ultimate answer, but it seems to me that by healing this idea that I am sinful, and that I need to be punished, and that I can never be right with God, then I would not be able to forgive anyone else. I would not truly be able to forgive anyone else. If I accept my own healing and my own that I do want to be at peace, and I do want to be in a place of acceptance, and I want to be able to let go of my whatever I'm holding against anyone and be at peace, then I will choose to forgive Hitler and anyone else. If I don't want to be at peace, and I want to keep fighting, and I want to keep judging myself, then I'm not going to do that. And I think that to me is the bottom line. I'm not saying that this is ultimately true. I'm saying it seems to me that if I want to be at peace, I have to learn to truly forgive others. And I have to truly let go and say, yes, Hitler, what he did was totally wrong, totally insane from the world's perspective, right? We don't know, the people. First of all, Hitler did not actually do the crimes. He ordered them, right? People were following his orders. Now, whose orders was Hitler following, right? Who was Hitler taking orders from, right? Maybe there's some divine plan happening. Maybe there's something karmic happening. We don't really know, right? Who knows? Some people will say that they do, that they've had some kind of mystic revelation, or have some psychic ability that they can tune into it, they can tap into it, but most of us don't know. We can't say for sure. We're not 100% certain. But what we can do is we can say, I want to be forgiven. I want to be. The question really is not, can Hitler be forgiven? Is, can I be forgiven? Do I want to be forgiven? And am I willing to forgive myself? That's really the question. And if we do that, I really feel that we will also forgive our brothers, right? We will forgive even the most horrible things, knowing that person, whatever they're doing, they are temporarily insane, right? Temporarily, not completely, but temporarily insane. I think I'm going to end it there. I have, there's more that I could say. I would love to hear your feedback, your comments, your thoughts on this. I think I did a better job with this video, and I looking forward to hearing the comments and reading your thoughts on this issue. I really don't mind if you take me to task, but I do want you to understand that I'm not saying, again, from a worldly, earthly perspective, Hitler and the Nazis needed to be stopped, and they needed to be, hallelujah that the Allies won the war, right? because if not, who knows what would have happened. As Gandhi said, just you look at the world and you see that good always triumphs, right? The good always triumphs. So from that perspective, yes, Hitler absolutely needed to be stopped, but that's a separate thing from, can we forgive Hitler, right? Or can Hitler be forgiven? Maybe humans cannot forgive Hitler, but Hitler, from a divine perspective, he's already forgiven, right? Because we don't even know who's running the show here, right? And again, where did he get his orders from, right? Who is he taking orders from? where did this whole thing? How did this all come to be, right? How did Hitler rise to power and kill all those people in that short amount of time? It seems incredible, actually. It seems like that's why I can understand Holocaust denial and Holocaust revisionism, because it seems incredible that amount of people could be killed in that short amount of time. But anyway, we'd love to hear your thoughts, and thank you for listening. And yeah, feel free to leave your comments, feedback, suggestions, etc., and I'll try to put some links in the description. All right, thank you.